Bree's daughter Zay was a happy, healthy 15-year-old. It was unusual for her to text her mom during the day.
I received a text from Zay, who was at school. She said that she felt dizzy, like she might pass out, and she just didn't feel good. And then her next text was, "Please hurry." We went into the ER in Wichita. Within that first 24 hours in Wichita, they ruled out common bacterial infections, standard viral panel. Everything was coming back negative, but her symptoms were getting worse.
Zay's lungs deteriorated rapidly. After consulting specialists at Children's Mercy, the decision was made to transport Zay to Kansas City.
So I said, okay, are we gonna drive today, tomorrow? And they said, no, we're gonna take her by flight now.
I met Zay on a Saturday morning. She started to decline very rapidly. She had what we call bilateral air leak, which is the lungs are leaking air into spaces that it shouldn't be. And when that happens, we know the lungs are so damaged that we really can't use the ventilator to support her. And so that's when we decided that she should go on to ECMO.
ECMO is pretty much the highest form of life support. It's not gonna fix anything. We're just buying them some time, and then it's not without complications.
It takes one person to run the machine 24 hours a day, and that's their only job. It takes at least one person to take care of Zay, and that's their only job. It's a respiratory therapist, the physicians, the ECMO core team.
In only a few days, Zay has become one of the most critical patients in intensive care. But her diagnosis is still a mystery.
Zay had such poorly functioning lungs that we all felt if she did not go onto this machine that it was highly likely that she would die.
We were placed on ECMO support, and she has this Avalon cannula going into her right jugular, exchanging her gas through her blood, and that's when our journey began.
In pediatric intensive care, Zay's lungs have not recovered. She needs more time on life support to try to heal. Zay has been coughing up blood and battling blood clots, fevers, and medication side effects. She's been unable to eat solid food or even move her head off the pillow for almost a month. Bree asks her daughter if anything could help.
She decided that she wanted to eat, and she barely had breath to talk, and we asked her what she wanted to eat, and she said tacos. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a girl who's been bedbound, hasn't had any therapy yet. And I watched her take an hour to make her soft taco and take her first bite. And so from the tacos and tolerating that, the team decided that it would be okay for her to try to sit up in bed.
The ECMO team had been working for months on how to help their patients sit up safely. Zay will be the first patient to try.
So we kind of went back to the drawing board. We had never done this before, but we knew it's what she needed.
Sitting gave Zay a bit of normalcy after living in the hospital for months. But she pushed the team further. She wanted to walk.
I had had a conversation with Mom pretty early on, and I had told Mom, I was like, I'm so proud of how far we've come, and she's doing things we've never done before. But I know she wants to walk, and we're not gonna be able to do that.
In talking to Debbie later, she said she stepped back and she thought, well, why aren't we ready? If Zay's ready, why aren't we ready? Let's do it.
Few pediatric patients have ever walked on ECMO. The Children's Mercy team decided to commit to this new goal.
So we know that weight bearing, walking, sitting up, lifting weights, doing those types of things is so good for the body and so good for healing. So if she's motivated to do it and we know it's good for her, then we should figure out a way to do it.
Any movement in Zay's ECMO cannula is life-threatening. After weeks of preparation, Zay is ready for her first historic steps. After being in a hospital bed on life support for nearly 2 months, Zay is very weak. A stumble or fall on her short walk could be fatal.
Just so many departments had to come together to make this happen. Everybody felt like this is what was best for her to progress and rehabilitate on ECMO.
Every movement was carefully coordinated by the ECMO and PICU teams.
And then when she was ready, we did it.
That's awesome, Zay.
Zay is the first Children's Mercy patient to eat solid food, sit up, and walk on ECMO.
Well, I think being connected to a life support system for months, there's no normal in that. Anything that we could do or give her that gave her a little bit of home was so important. Everybody who came together for Zay is a true example of patient-centered care. And just again, so proud of my hospital and my team.
After 189 days on life support, Zay's lungs have healed enough to function with only a ventilator to help her breathe. She can finally be taken off ECMO.
She was on for 4,556 hours, or almost 190 days. She really pushed our program in a lot of ways, and so it's hard to sign off at this point.
Surgery to remove the ECMO machine will end the longest ECMO run in Children's Mercy history.
She literally is like this. She can't move her neck. I mean, she can't do anything for 189 days without asking. If she gets this ECMO off, she could roll over in bed now without asking permission. I'm confident that we're gonna come off ECMO and our rate of improvement is going to just take off.
Back at Children's Mercy, Zay is off ECMO. Her weak lungs struggle to breathe, even with help from a ventilator. But now she faces another crisis.
She unfortunately had a very difficult time coming off. She ended up having pulmonary embolisms, which were clots in her lungs. That's the same time that we were worried that she'd had a stroke. We were all beside ourselves with emotion for how to get Zay through this and thinking that maybe after all this time on ECMO, we weren't going to be able to.
I appreciate you guys being honest.
Zay's blood pressure and oxygen levels dropped. She stopped speaking. The team has few options left.
Like, she's fought so hard. Like, I don't want today to be the end of her story.
Zay's condition is still a mystery. Her lungs stopped functioning over 6 months ago, and she's been in the hospital ever since. ECMO life support has been keeping her alive as her lungs slowly heal. Now her lungs are stronger, and ECMO has been removed, but Zay is very unstable.
The problem with being on something like ECMO for weeks and weeks is it's really hard on your body to be lying still in bed, not moving. And patients often don't survive because of the complications. We had a very large complication when she came off. She has had a lot of clot into both sides of her lungs. So now the big decision is, how do we treat it?
The team needs a scan to locate Zay's blood clots, so they know how to treat her. But simply moving her is a huge risk. Despite taking every precaution, Zay's oxygen saturation plunged and her heart stopped beating.
So this whole team went with her. She desatted when we moved her from the bed to the CT table, and they saved her life in CT. And I give so much credit to the people that were there with her.
She made it through that pulmonary embolus, and we're seeming to get better, but then she had some abrupt changes.
All of a sudden, I just noticed that she kind of like checked out, and she just wasn't responding very much to me. Say, honey, if you can hear me, try to open your eyes really big. And then we noticed that she wasn't moving her left arm or her left leg.
She had this horrible stroke now. After all of this time on ECMO, it was very emotional, very scary, devastating.
She woke up and she started tracking, and she was able to look over at me, and then she was able to kind of move her arm a little bit and then her leg.
She made it through the evening, and then by the next day was starting to act more normal. It doesn't seem that any of it was caused permanent damage.
After surviving 2 life-threatening complications, Zay is stable. Now she has to heal. Weakened from her stroke, Zay must start over with her recovery.
The pulmonary embolus was so challenging to her body, she really was debilitated afterwards, and it's taken a long time to get her back to this stage.
After weeks of therapy, Zay is able to move and communicate again.
Hey, honey, all we want to do is sit, okay? All we want you to do. Give you a boost. She, just about an hour ago, worked with occupational therapy and sat up on the side of the bed. It was certainly hard for her, but it's so much more than we've had. Good job, C. Good job.
She's still on a ventilator. She still has what we call pulmonary hypertension and right heart dysfunction, and she's on a lot of medication that is keeping her in the ICU.
Zay and her mom have been living in the hospital for over 6 months. They are still a long way from going home.
We want her to stay strong and still have her passion to keep struggling through this.
Despite blood pressure issues, pain, and infections, Zay is slowly improving from her mysterious illness.
She seems to be making physical improvements every single day. Today, she was able to wash her own face. Yesterday was the first time she was able to eat. She had like a half a cup of fruit, sitting up on the side of the bed. Very big thing. Also on the vent, we've been on max settings since coming off of ECMO, and for the first time yesterday, we were able to wean down to 95% instead of 100, and then today 92%. So to put that in perspective, she has to be down to 30% to go home. But we are no longer on max support, and that is something.
She is slowly getting better, so we're relieved, but we're certainly not out of the woods.
No one knows when Zay can go home. Day by day, small accomplishments keep her going. Zay's new goal? 10 minutes outside to feel the sun on her face. Despite Zay's progress, life in the hospital is still a struggle.
It's been very painful.
She has broken her ribs from coughing. Every breath is a struggle, but Zay keeps fighting.
I don't have any other choice. I don't want to die.
What I want to give Zay credit for is it hasn't been, 260 days of a coma or sedation. She has endured 260 days of suffering. She has these high notes and these things that we do and these celebrations, but there has not been one day where she was not dealing with severe pain, shortness of air, nausea and vomiting. I realized maybe the last month how important it is for me to retain hope for her well-being.
But today is a good day. Zay is well enough to see her brother and sister and breathe fresh air for the first time in 9 months.
I think her story is so amazing from a medical perspective because she's been able to survive so many complications and such a severe disease and an extraordinarily long run on ECMO. Because we were able to do so many things with her that we haven't done before, we'll be ready to do them faster for other patients.
There's smiles and then there's real smiles, and that day those smiles were real smiles.
The one thing that keeps Zay going is hope.
I just want to go home and see my family. Be in my own bed. To keep myself going, I just tell myself nothing lasts forever. And I'm gonna get home eventually.
Four months later, after almost a year in the hospital, Zay has reached a huge milestone, moving from full oxygen support on a hospital respirator to a smaller home ventilator.
Zay remains very fragile, but she makes small steps every day.
When they put me on a home vent, all that independence made me just happier and stronger, a lot stronger. Me and my mom did a plank challenge. I won. I beat her I got 1 minute and 30 seconds.
One of the big things is just reminding us, ourselves, I think, as she goes forward and then steps back, that we do get more forward every time.
I think to get through my journey, I had to have a lot of trust in my doctors because I was terrified.
She has endured more than I think most people in general, but certainly any patient that I've ever had.
It's hard for me to believe how far she's come in such a short time, and I don't think she even realizes how much she's overcome at this point, and that's okay.
My immediate goal is to get back home. That's always been my goal.
Zay still has a long road ahead, but with each day of healing, she is one step closer to going home.